the lands that's going to be divested. I don't think the decisions on if a land is still staying in the conservation estate as some other type of park or reserve, that doesn't make much difference to TTPP. But there is, I think, about 3,000 hectares which is proposed to be sold. And so we'll probably look at bringing something back to you next year just to see if it's worth rezoning that land so that it's able to be used, not zoned for open space purposes, but for what's a more appropriate zoning so that it can be used for whatever is appropriate. I imagine most of it's probably in rural areas, but maybe some of it's also in your towns.
Well, I know like the DOC is going to administer the land, but they have opened it up for mining and grazing. That's not the stuff they're going to sell. It'll be able to be leased. So I just wonder how that worked.
So through you, Mr. Chair, if DOC does things, they aren't subject to this plan because they have their own provisions under the Conservation Act, so they have to act in accordance with those, but provided they do, they don't need any approvals under TTPP. Where they have concessionaires who are the people who might be grazing or mining or whatever, they do need to meet the plan provisions, but we do have in the open space zone, which is what most of the stewardship land is currently classified as, we do have rules that provide for mineral extraction and for grazing and a range of other uses.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to know. I just wondered if they had, someone said they had their own rules, but I wasn't sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's not specifically for stewardship land, but they're all zoned the open space zone, which is, I guess, the most flexible of all of the open space and recreation zones. Sorry, it's not very...
Okay, thank you.
So if I can, Mr. Chair, Lois, with that, I just wanted to get that same confirmation. So with the rezoning or reclassification, we will be looking at that to ensure that the zoning happens in line with the intention of what this change aspires to create. Because, I mean, talking about, we've got run holders, that's lease, that can carry on, but we've got land that's going to come out of stewardship land and it's workable land, it's whatever. But we've got to ensure that it gets to the desired end result of why this decision's been made. And don't put roadblocks in the way just because.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it's my view that if it's coming out of stewardship land into general title, effectively, then absolutely it should be rezoned. So as soon as we have enough information, what the parcels are, where they are, all of that kind of thing, I can bring a report to you seeking approval to progress to a plan change to rezone it. As I'll talk about a bit later in the meeting, of course, any plan changes at the moment need to have approvals from the minister. So there's a few extra hoops we have to go to, but I would imagine that would be no issue given that the government has decided that this land is not appropriate to remain in the DOC estate.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I could comment. I really want to support and agree with the sentiment that you're sort of intimating there, Mayor Lash, and the response from Lois. But we have to do things in the right order. Firstly, that land has to be enacted as to freehold it, and that hasn't gone through the machinery of government yet. And there is entirely the possibility of judicial reviews on that process. So all of that has to be settled, and then that's plan change number X on the books as soon as that's through, and that's in the best interests, I think, of the economic activity on the West Coast. Thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. Welcome, Francois. I think you're on the screen now. That's good. Yeah. Any other questions to Lois on her paper or update on the appeals received?
Yeah, Rick's one from me, please.
Yes, please.
Lois, you spoke around obviously highlighting the pieces that have been appealed and getting an updated plan out so people can see those, and obviously the sections being not appealed become operative. What's the runway for that? Is that a January or a February thing or later?
I have a preliminary list. This is what I'm really focused on at the moment because it's so important and it makes a huge difference to people applying for resource consents and to your staff administering those. So I'm totally trying to get as much information out to them as soon as I can before Christmas. I do have to get it. So I've got a preliminary list of what provisions I think are operative. But I need to get that checked by our lawyers. So what I'll be doing is that's kind of what I'm doing over the next few days. Then I will send that out to your staff so they will have something to work from. But it takes a little bit more time to amend the plan because it's quite a long plan. And so my aim is that we have what's called an RMA shutdown period, which starts quite shortly. So my aim is that by the end of the RMA shutdown period, which I think it starts back up on about the 10th of January, then we should have an annotated plan that is live on the website, which clearly identifies which parts are operative and which parts are under appeal. So that's kind of the time frame I'm working to at the moment.
So thank you for that.
Any other questions? No, there appears to be not. Thank you. I'll move to the next paper, the project manager's paper confirming the standing orders and code of conduct. I'll leave you to introduce that, Jo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to start by saying that TTPP's got a number of governance documents, and they consist firstly of the founding legal document, which is the Order in Council, because that establishes the TTPP committee and its role in the plan making and governing that through all the changes in the future. Plus, we have a deed of agreement, that two documents I gave you at the last meeting that's been signed by all the parties involved in the TTPP process, and it confirms their participation in the process and also gives some operational arrangements to make sure that the outcomes are achieved for the Order in Council. So the two that we're talking about today are the standing orders and the code of conduct, which set the rules for the committee proceedings and for conduct, and they complete that group of governance documentation. Previous committee members had decided that these two documents should be assessed and confirmed every triennium, so that's what we're doing, bringing it early in this triennium to you. And I've got to say that every time I read the standing orders and code of conduct from start to finish, I find something there that's worth amending. And these are the things that I've tracked throughout both the documents, just for your comment. It would be good to start by looking at the standing orders, which are Appendix 1 of this paper. Starting at page 13, I'll say that all of the changes that I'm suggesting here have minor effect. But two that I want to mention are on page 13, the two definition changes there. I've got the meaning of officer. I'm suggesting that gets changed just to reflect the joint nature of the parties of the committee instead of just naming one party. And then further down on the same page, the definition about being present to constitute a quorum, it would now reflect the content that is in the standing orders themselves, which says it can be by electronic link, video link, and that hadn't been moved through into the definition when we made that change about 15 months ago. The other big change, I guess, is in Appendix 4, which is on page 62 of the standing orders, which are numbered separately from the agenda. And that is just that I've changed all the numbers of the sections pertaining to Appendix 4, because in the last round of changes, which was just in February this year to the standing orders, we took out a section of the standing orders which really just talked about local government needs and it didn't refer to a joint committee at all. Was too specific for the joint committee purposes, and I hadn't realised that it would impact the numbering in the appendix. So that was just nothing's changed except improving the numbering there. So I hope that you've had an opportunity just to have a quick look at those small changes that I've made throughout the document. I know it's a big document. Are there any comments on the track changes part?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Any comments from committee members? It seems like machinery to me. Thanks for doing it, Joe.
Just any other questions or perhaps even suggestions from anyone else that where they saw that changes might be needed from the last iteration?
And I'm all good.
Seems not.
Thank you. Okay, well then if we look to the Code of Conduct, if I draw your attention to page 3, this was my mistake completely, and I do apologise for it. I'm correcting a reference there to the final version of the Order in Council. I'd referred to the wrong version, which was my mistake entirely, but the content that it was referring to was exactly the same in both iterations of both versions of the Order in Council, so it hasn't changed the content. I've just updated that. And apart from that, just amended a few words which I think improved the understanding of the document. There seemed to be a couple of words missed out in places. So I don't know if there are any further comments on the track changes or any questions about the code or suggested changes there.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? It appears not. So then I think I'm just looking for a motion for this committee to approve the standing orders and code of conduct, which will apply for this triennium until next amended. Someone to move that way?
I'll move it, Rex.
Thank you. That's Mayor Gibson and seconded by
Councillor Casson.
Councillor Casson. Thank you. All in, any comments? All in favour? Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you. Thanks for that report, Joe. Move to the next item on the agenda. I'm struggling with my screen, and I'll just ask you to pick it up. Thanks, Joe.
The next item is from the Principal Planner on the plan change.
Thank you. Yes, right. Thanks, Lois. If you could explain the report plan change 1, the application to the Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are in this, as I'm sure everyone is aware, slightly unusual time where we have the RMA is eventually going to be replaced. And in ahead of that, what the government did maybe 3 or 4 months ago was introduced a provision that's known as plan stop. So what this effectively was the government saying we don't want councils to keep working on their plans because we're going to change the RMA system. They had a number of exemptions for that, and obviously TTPP was one of those because it was nearly at the point of decision. However, any plan changes are subject to this plan stop provision. Now, within what's called plan stop, there is actually a whole lot of hoops that are able to be jumped through to allow plan changes to occur. And as I talked to you at the previous meeting, the plan now is being implemented. All of the mistakes and the niggly things that don't quite work are coming to the fore. Where possible, we are fixing those through the minor areas provisions, and I have another paper on this agenda for some minor areas to be fixed. But if they have a material effect, so actually make a difference in terms of what someone can do on their land, then they will need to be included in a plan change. The plan stop mechanism does allow for these types of plan changes, and so particularly it focuses on matters which are either unworkable or lead to inefficient outcomes, which, you know, obviously mistakes do that. So we've had some discussions with the staff at the Ministry for the Environment, and they've indicated that the types of things that they think would fit well with the mechanism of approval to go ahead with plan change. So what I've done in this report is I've outlined a number of things which have been identified through meetings with your technical team as issues which have arisen with the plan where there are things that are causing problems. And I've put them on the table. I should just stress that they're not spelled out in a tremendous amount of detail at the moment. Obviously, everything is moving quite quickly, and there's quite a lot of work to do from this is a problem to what would the replacement drafting look like, and that's work that I've yet to have completed. But wanted to give you an overview of the types of things that we are talking about. And what the process is that I would need to draft probably fairly clear what is the change in the plan and the Section 32 document, which is the analysis of costs and benefits, the justification document. And that's the information plus a form I have to fill out that goes to the Ministry for the Environment. It's assessed by them, and then if they're comfortable to forward it to the Minister, which is the Minister for RMA Reform, then if they would forward that to him for him to consider whether or not he would approve it. So there's quite, as you can gather, there's quite a lot of process here. Some of the matters that I've included in the table are matters which have been appealed by one or more of the councils. I've included those because I'm not sure which is the faster process at this point in time. So I felt like it's a little bit of a bet hedging, I guess I would say. We know that at the moment 30 councils have applied to the Minister for approval to do plan changes, and Ministry for Environment has said they're expecting to clear that backlog by Christmas. But I know of other councils who are busy doing their applications at the moment. So there's a lot of work going on right around the country that will be being looked at. So we don't know how long it will take the Minister to approve us progressing with Plan Change 1. So I've included some of those things which we talked about at the last committee meeting, the site coverage issue particularly, but also some of the noise issues and light, because these are things that we're getting strong feedback from the technical staff are causing real problems with administration of the plan. And really that whole kind of thing about provisions which are causing unnecessary requirements for equals consents. So I've included those in this plan change. Probably the other thing I would say is that there's no matters that I would call significant in terms of policy. That is quite deliberate because the idea is to do a very tight and clear plan change which is addressing problems which are not contentious, because then we will attract few submissions, except probably in support. We will be able to push this plan change through very quickly and hopefully with a kind of a minimum of cost time. If we add in any kind of substantive matter, then it will immediately attract large quantities of submissions, and we will be through into quite a full-on process. So originally, when I talked about this previously, I'd suggested that we might make some changes to the heritage schedule. Now I've looked at that, I think that's probably going to be too contentious and will attract a lot of submissions. So I still think that it's something that you should consider, but my recommendation is to throw a separate plan change so that if we are having a plan change that is dealing with more contentious matters, then they're ring-fenced and it doesn't slow down the just kind of basic fix some problems in the plan change. So if you would like me to, Mr. Chair, I can go through the table, or I'm happy to take questions from the committee.
Thanks. Let's just pause there after those introductory comments. Any questions or comments from committee members?
You go first.
Just saying that I've been through that table last. I don't think we need to if we're taking it as read, but I think it's all good stuff. And if we can get some traction through this mechanism, that will be good, because it's most of the concerns that we had.
Yeah. Councillor Gibson.
I just want to ask Lois a question, if I could. The whole plan was run through and based on the regional policy statement. Now, they're going to be scrapped now, but how much different would it have been for the outcome if we didn't do it on the regional policy statement? I know it's a funny question, but a lot of the results were because of that rule.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's probably quite a long, but I'll just summarise the things I think the regional policy statement made a really big difference to were the ecosystems and biodiversity topic, the coastal environment topic, and possibly the landscape topic, because those are the ones where the regional policy statement is very strongly directive and protective. And the ecosystems and biodiversity topic in particular was very strongly influenced by the regional policy statement. So those are the areas. So it really had very little effect on things like the zone provisions or some of these other matters. But just those big three probably are where the regional policy statement had a really big influence. And probably actually, I guess from the perspective of the West Coast, it had quite a positive influence, I think, in terms of the energy, infrastructure and transport chapters, because the regional policy statement does really strongly emphasise the importance of regionally significant infrastructure. So that's the big positive effect that the regional policy statements had. But I guess in terms of the matters that are there, is these matters under appeal, it's those natural environment topics where the regional policy statement pushed us to a more protective framework.
Thanks for clarifying that, and I'm happy with what you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I could make a comment on that.
Yes, please. Thank you, Daryl.
Excellent, thank you. I think that an alternative question would be, given that they're going to do away with the regional policy statements, but they are going to enact a whole slew of national direction, the question would then become what aspects of the regional policy statements right around the country are they going to roll over into the national direction and possibly even reinforce or enhance? And I'll give you an example of the national direction on natural hazards, for instance, because we're fully expecting that to be strengthened, the position that emanated from the RPS. So look, I'm not asking staff to answer that question. I'm just pointing out that it isn't a simple case of thinking that the RPS is just disappearing and so all those drivers in the RPS are gone. Many of the aspects of the RPSs around the country are going to be put back in some form, but we have to work through that and see what's gone and what stays, and perhaps even what's further enhanced and strengthened from that process. Thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. Any other questions or comments about the introduction?
Through the chair.
Yeah, please. Yep.
Can I ask, Lois, what's the issue with the heritage?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's expected to be controversial.
So through you, Mr. Chair, what I'm proposing in this plan change isn't. So we have hired a heritage professional, Dr. Anne McEwen, to review the heritage schedule. That was one of the things that we had to do as part of the hearings process, and as a result of the input of Heritage New Zealand. And she's identified where we've got poor descriptions really in the appendices of the extents of heritage items. So I'm proposing to address that through this plan change. And I think that everyone would agree that's probably a good thing to do, make it clear what is protected and what isn't. But when she did that review, she also identified quite a long list of heritage items that she believes don't actually meet the threshold to warrant to be included in the district plan. And it's about 20 items across the 3 districts, maybe even it might be close to 30. So when I looked at that list, I initially kind of my memory had been, oh, it's not that many. But when I looked at that list, I went, oh, it's actually quite a long list. And I think some of these things I would think would attract quite a lot of opposition to being removed from the schedule. So I felt that that's quite a substantive policy matter. So that's the matter that I think we need to look at separately rather than included in this plan change.
Okay, so can we see that list, please?
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
And so with respect, what's her credentials for the heritage on the West Coast?
I think she's got a PhD in heritage, so that's my understanding. And she's
on the West Coast. What's her background?
I would have to look into that. I do remember when we hired her that she. I mean, it's difficult because we have actually no kind of certified heritage professional on the West Coast. So she lives in Canterbury, I think. But she certainly has spent quite a lot of time on the West Coast and seemed to be reasonably familiar. She was recommended to us from Heritage New Zealand as being the landscape professional who knew the most about West Coast heritage items, but she's not from the West Coast. So I can also, I'll get you a bit of information on her. I guess that one of those things is that, yeah, people on the West Coast have a different view of their heritage, completely understandable. And that's, I identified that when I started looking at that list. I went, oh, I'm not sure that people would agree with this. So certainly something to talk about and think about a bit more.
Yes, so through the chair, then with respect to this consultant, I mean, this is our West Coast plan. The heritage items that within this are important to us and to our future, and so we should be making a decision on this, make the call, not some outsider who just rules it, puts the rule through 20 heritage. What about the emissions from the as well? When are they going to be addressed?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
The emissions, when will the emissions be addressed?
The emissions?
Omissions, things that weren't included.
Oh, omissions. Sorry, my apologies. The difficulty is that adding things into the plan, adding more rules, adding more heritage items won't meet the criteria for plan stop. So that is the real difficulty. So we can only do things which reduce regulation effectively through the plan stop mechanism. We can't add heritage items. There's no approval mechanism for that. So therefore we will have to wait until after RMA reform. And I haven't looked into it in detail, but I would say that will be in several years because the way in which you do that will depend on what happens exactly with RMA reform. But our ability to add heritage items, I think, will be on hold. And similarly, adding any missed sites of significance to Māori, I think it will be several years before we're able to come back to that.
Thank you. It's a real shame. It's a missed opportunity, but yeah, the wheels turn slowly. Well,
Thank you, Paul. Other comments? Yes, please.
Lois, in terms of the appeals, and obviously we're going to wrap them all up attempt to wrap them all up in a plan change. Is that right? That's right,
So appeals are separate from this plan change. So matters that are appealed, if we settle them, then the plan is just automatically changed once the consent order is issued by the court.
Okay, so in terms of the appeals, then is there a process we can do similar to what we've done with the RPS around like caucusing and meeting with these people beforehand and trying to get it sorted out before it gets to that stage?
Oh yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, the next stage with appeals, once we've got all the parties identified, will be Environment Court ordered mediation. But if there's small matters that perhaps there's only one appellant that we could resolve through direct discussion, we are able to do so. So that will definitely be on my recommendations to you, that there are some appeals that I've looked at them and I've gone, oh gosh, this could be resolved really simply. So we'll definitely try and get those out of the way as quickly as possible. And then the next step will be the court ordered and mediation. So all of that will be in your report to your February meeting. And kind of a proposed path for dealing with the different appeals. But there are a few ones that we should be able to sort out quite quickly. And then there's the ones which I feel like, even though we will do our best with mediation, and we're probably going to court, and I think we all kind of...
No, that's why I just thought there'd be some silly ones in there we could just deal with them.
There's definitely some minor things that I'm not sure why people even appealed, but we should be able to sort them out.
Excellent, thank you.
So, Lois, turning back to your paper, the provisions following para 14, were you suggesting that you might whiz through those, just pick up any highlights so that committee members are aware of the matters?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chair. So I won't touch on everything. I will just maybe highlight. I guess I'd just say in relation to mapping, there are a few mapping errors, and I just had another one emailed to me today. And if where at all possible, I'd like to fix those. I think that this is the mechanism we've got available because they're zoning errors. We can't fix them through the minor errors mechanism. So great to fix them through the plan change. They're all very small bits of parcels or one parcel wrongly zoned, surrounded by open space or general rural, and it should be something else. So they're all quite minor, but obviously very important to the landowners. In terms of the plan text, we talked about the extent issue for heritage items. I've got in there those matters which were particular concern to the district councils around site coverage and building coverage. There's also a number of, I guess they're reasonably minor but technical changes to some rules and standards in the subdivision chapter. We had probably one of the bigger issues that is kind of an unintended outcome of the changes to firefighting water provisions is the impact of that in terms of with the firefighting water requirements, suddenly we need much bigger tanks, and that hadn't been anticipated in the plan drafting. So fixing that, I think, is quite important, and I think that's an issue that's hitting quite a lot of people in the settlement zone. Because the Westport flood control scheme is being implemented at the moment, we're finding all the issues with the natural hazard mitigation structures rules. So I have some fixes proposed for that in relation to both the earthworks topic and also where those rules are located. The noise one, I think I highlighted to those members of the committee who were in the last trinium. I had been concerned about the recommendation on noise rule 3, and your staff had too, and that is causing the problems that we had been concerned about. So I want to fix that. Similarly, the light rule 5 is we're concerned about that was triggering things that we didn't want it to, that's having some unintended consequences. So I have that on the list. There's some minor things with the definition of network utility operator, just making sure that genuine infrastructure is treated as a network utility, not sort of hoped for future to be developed infrastructure. And I think that's probably, that pretty much covers the kind of the main things that I wanted to highlight. So they're all pretty minor in individual, but they add up to a bunch of things which do, I think, meet very nicely that, unintended consequences, inefficient, tripping people up unnecessarily. And so I feel will be a good fit for the criteria that the Minister has set out.
Thank you, Lois. Any questions on those sorts of details before I move back to the recommendations? Seem to be none. If I just move then back to the page 10 of the papers, the recommendations. Lois, would you mind just explaining the technical intent once again of para 2 and 3 of the recommendations, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So the recommendation 2 is that we explicitly have to have your approval to approach the Minister for RMA reform to proceed with the plan change. So I'm seeking that from you, that you authorise us to make that application to the Minister. And that refers to the plan stop is what we call it, but it's actually the Resource Management Consenting and Other System Changes Amendment Act 2025 that we are seeking approval to do the plan change under. And then also, because I am just aware that though these things are, I guess I would call them niggly, they're having an effect and we want to proceed as quickly as possible. So I'm asking your approval to be able to do the parallel process of drafting the Section 32 of any necessary pre-consultation that we would need to do, so that as soon as we've got the Minister's approval, I can come back to you with a reasonably well-formed and drafted plan change where we can say we're at a good stage to be able to proceed. So trying to just kind of make this process as efficient and fast as possible.
Thank you, Lois. And sorry to be pedantic, but if you could just remind people about the Section 32, what the analysis is about.
So the Resource Management Act requires that for any regulation or change to regulation that we do under it, that we produce a document that sits alongside it, which Planner's shorthand is section 32 analysis. It's an analysis of the costs and benefits and the reasons why we would be doing the plan change. So that's going to be reasonably short and simple for this plan change, but nevertheless, it's a legal requirement to produce that document, and it needs to be available at the time that the plan change is done. And we've also had advice from the Ministry for the Environment that needs to be reasonably well drafted for the Minister to review as well, that they're wanting to make sure that it really is something that meets the criteria.
Thank you. So, turning to the recommendation.
You've got a question from Councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Councillor.
I was just wondering why iwi have to be consulted when they're on the committee.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a statutory requirement of the RM.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? So, looking for someone to move and someone to second the recommendations. I think we take the three are interlinked.
I'll move it.
Thank Mayor Gibson, moved by, second by, I think it was Councillor Webb. Was it Councillor stroking your chin or seconding that? Moved and seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Move on to the next item on the agenda, which is to do with the further minor errors. Again with you, I believe, Lois.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is just the next round, I guess, of minor fixes to the plan. I am expecting to bring a similar report to you with another lot to your February meeting. These are all mistakes that have been identified as the plan's being implemented, and they range from typographic errors to still a few things that the changes to the plan didn't reflect the decision that was made by the committee. So those can be corrected. They're all pretty minor, and they meet what's the requirements set out in the Resource Management Act under Clause 16 of Schedule 1 for minor error corrections, which we can just basically do them immediately, provided you approve it. Assuming you would approve it, I would be making the changes to the plan on Tuesday, and we would see a second minor error correction public notice go out, and also something on the website just to highlight to people that they're which minor errors have been corrected and that they have been corrected. So I don't have anything in particular to highlight. It's just, I guess, more minor fixes to make the plan correct, fix typos, make it easier to understand some of the rules, and particularly in the earthworks chapter. I think we've got some problems with the way, a few words, making it a bit unclear, the drafting. So a few fixes like that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this report, which begins on page 16 of the papers? There seem to be none.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if Lois could comment, please.
Yes.
In terms of the minor amendments that can be done without formality, and in terms of the last paper, which is Plan Change 1, will that deal to in part or all of any of the appeals that you're seeing at the moment at all?
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes. So there are some things in this minor errors correction which have been appealed. So we should then be able to settle those matters. And there are matters in Plan Change 1, which are also subject to appeal. I guess I've included them in Plan Change 1 because I wasn't sure which process would be faster. And so because there were significant matters for the full councils in iwi, I've included them in Plan Change 1, but which will happen faster, I'm not sure at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. The paper in February that you're going to bring back around the appeals be helpful, just to indicate, what how many of the matters might be able to be dealt with by either of these two processes. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yep. Good. Any other questions or comments? None. Then turning to the recommendations on page 16, recommendations 4 and 5, I think they're numbered. I think they're pretty clear. Somebody moved that those recommendations be adopted.
Happy to.
Yeah, right. Sorry, I lost that. Who was that again?
Happy to.
Who, that Councillor Casson. And seconded by Mayor Gibson. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving then to the next item on the agenda, financial reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The financial statement, this one takes us through to the 31st of October. And I think if we go straight to table 1, which is on page 21 of the agenda, it continues to show, you will see that expenses are tracking ahead of the budget for this period. And it's due again in the main to the increased hearing fee requirements to get the recommendations report across in this financial year rather than last financial year. Apart from that, everything's pretty much tracking as anticipated. And just wonder if you've got any questions on table 1, just the monthly update since last September's.
Okay. Seems to be carry on. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. I'll move to table 2. I'll give a little bit more of an explanation about this. This is the one that shows the total income and expenditure for the life of the project. So from when the plan started in development to the point it's at now where the decision's been notified. So you can see that in the blue section on the left, it shows the actual budget and variance for last financial year. That's just to keep us informed of where things were at. And also there's often a little bit of a wash up between that and what ends up in the grey part of the table. So going backwards in time, you'll see that the project's been underway since 2019. And so you can see the actual income and expenditure there. The right-hand column is something that was added by the Finance Department at our request so that we could see a bit of a rolling total of where we're at all the time, what it's doing right up until the 31st of October. So there was a question about that total expenditure to date column at the last meeting, and I will explain it this way. That column shows the full year income and expenditure from table 2 plus the actual income and expenditure to date from table 1. So that's what brings it up to the minute for us, is pulling down from table 1. In this case, if we have a look at total expenditure, 874,000. So that's included in the total expenditure line, the right-hand column at the bottom there. And the same with the income that's brought forward each month as well. So that I hope that explains what the difference was that Councillor Casson pointed out at the last meeting, and that makes sense to you, but happy to take any questions about this because it's great for you to be able to understand it early on, because it will just keep coming to you every month.
Thank you. Any questions for the financial report?
Yeah, one from me, Rex.
Yes, please.
Thanks for that, Joe, from that qualifier down the bottom, so it sort of covers that off with the asterisks. Is it worth adding another column and including the budget lines for the current year to the left of the stuff in blue, so it's even more clear?
Sorry, I don't quite understand.
So in the blue boxes, you've got the prior year stuff to be obviously firmed up before it goes to grey. Is it worth carrying over the current year to date? Obviously the stuff you've got in
actually have that in there.
Yeah, so it's accurate in all of the cells do. If one goes through the calculator and has a play.
Yeah, I'll talk to the Finance Department about that, Councillor Casson, because they've set it up this way. I just want to make sure that it works for them, but I'm happy to ask.
Cool, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one from me, please.
Yes.
Joe, I think the committee, the Joint Committee, would find it rather helpful if we could make sure that we are able to report on the costs of this plan through to its operative stage, which includes all the costs to date, plus the appeal costs as a total. But I'd very much like to be able to report on what are the total costs to get us to the plan decision stage, and be able to report separately and track separately all the costs that we're going to spend on the appeals. Now I know that'll add up to a total cost, but I'd like to know how much the appeals process is going to cost us as a subtotal of the total. And then the last matter that I'd really like to track, because the original cost estimates were about getting the plan operative, which is decisions plus appeals. We're now starting to talk about plan changes, and I'd like to be able to track start time and cost of plan changes, because that wasn't within scope of the original budget. That was always going to be considered as maintaining the plan through its perpetuity and its life and those sorts of things. So being able to track that as a separable budget item to report on. And from a regional council perspective, we're obviously heading into our decisions and considerations of our annual plan, and then next year is our long-term plan, and we're going to have to work on the projections and cost forecasts for all of these things over the next 10 years to see what this is going to cost and what the regional council needs to fund on behalf of all the communities of the West Coast. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Daryl. I think all committee members will be interested in that breakdown, I should say. I judge that some of them will be estimates, of course, Joe's best endeavours estimates rather than down to the nearest dollar. But I think the intent of what you're commenting on is very appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mr. Chairman, if we could follow up on that. Look, it's so that you can't predict how much this appeals phase is going to cost us. It's really difficult to, but we do need to make a budget provision just for budgeting purposes. But the more important thing is being able to track and report how much it's costing us, really, so we know. But I think we need to report across those three work streams.
Yeah.
2 decisions, cost of appeals, and then forecasted budget and actual costs against plan changes. Thanks.
Thank you. Good. Any other questions or comments on the finance report? If not, could somebody move that the finance report be received? Moved by Mayor Russell, seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Turning to the last item on the agenda, which is the project manager's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the planning team has fielded a lot of questions, including a number of official information requests ahead of the appeals closing, because people wanted to get as much information as they could about how the decision was made or what research was done to inform their appeals. Also, that we have received one appeal and one submission on issues that the senders had previously tried to submit on, but neither of them had been accepted in the past. Both had been outside of the submissions period. They'd been during the variation 2 submission, and they'd been on industrial issues, like zoning issues. And one of the matters isn't even controlled by the TTPP. But just to let you know that the appeal that was received, the other one had just been reiterating their submission and not on the official form or to the Environment Court. The appeal that has been received, our lawyers have written a letter to him explaining that he received information at the time saying that his submission hadn't been accepted, so that he actually couldn't make a valid appeal, and asked him to withdraw that. So we're waiting to see if that will happen. Otherwise, so that would bring us to 35, I think, appeals. We have had just for your information, because you talk to people who are using the plan, and we had lots of requests to change provisions in the plan that impact individual properties. So people are going, I don't like where the plan has landed for my property because of this reason, because there's an overlay in the wrong place, or the zoning doesn't seem right to me. So what we do is we supply them, particularly Doug, thank you, Doug, all the information about the current zoning now, the overlays that are on the property, and then we have an explanation about us being in the appeals of a Schedule 1 planning process, and that we actually, because they're asking the staff to just make these changes for them, we don't have the power to do that. And that the Environment Court's now in control of the appeals process. So along with that information, they get links to lots of information that we've got on the website on how to, on that process, but how to make an appeal, where they need to go. And there's plenty of information there for them. So just so you know that the public's been provided all this information as requests have come through prior to appeals closing most of that busy time.
Thank you, Joe. If I could just reiterate that I'm aware of the considerable work that the planners have been putting in. I've had some, I wouldn't call them appellants, I'd call them correspondents, have been in touch with me, and I've in turn referred them to Doug Bray. And Doug, I thank you for your hard and diligent work on the matters that I've passed on to you. Any questions or comments on the project manager's update?
Chair.
Yes, please.
Yeah, apologies for my lateness, but so I missed the verbal update on the appeals received, but that I hear from Joe that there is 35.
It's 36 until we see what happens with this withdrawal. That's correct, is it, Lois? I'm ready.
Yes, it is.
Lois might be able to speak to you offline, Paul, just to very briefly keep you in the loop. The presentation that she made on the appeals and the nature of the appeals, probably easiest done offline.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Any other? Sorry, your question?
Sorry, through the chair. In the appellant mediation hearings, will they be open to the public?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. This is a process that it's run by the court, but it is a closed process. It's between the appellants and the mediator, the mediation process. So there's no public at all.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll move that the update be received. Seconded by, I think it was Councillor Gibson. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I think that concludes the meeting. I note that we next meet on the something of February.
10th, the 10th
of February. And the 4th of March, and I think we're aware that the important matters of considering how the committee will participate in mediation will need to be considered, apart from a lot of other things. So with that, I wish you all season's greetings, and we'll look forward to meeting with you next year. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thanks, and you too.